Men work long oars rowing with short strokes.
Thousands of years after the event would have taken place, the story of Moses miraculously parting the waters of the sea is still alive.
Bruce looks up from his Bible.
The Israelites go marching through the sea on dry ground, a wall of water on their right and another on their left. The Egyptians, meanwhile, come barreling in after them.
A parchment graphic appears over the waters. It reads Exodus chapter 14, verse 27.
And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the waters returned, and covered the chariots, the horsemen, and all the army of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. Not so much as one of them remained.
Hieroglyphics show a chariot wheel and fallen men. More men hold up their palms and look upward. Other carved figures kneel. Back on Bruce's boat.
But the children of Israel went on dry land, in the midst of the sea. So the Lord saved Israel that day, out of the hand of the Egyptians.
In dividing the waters and destroying the Egyptians, God shows his mastery not only over nature, but also over humanity. I had come all this way to be on this lake, only to realize that it wasn't the location or even the event that was important. What was important was that the Israelites experienced their liberation as an act of God.
Bruce faces us.
I always thought of the Exodus as a moment of exhilaration, out of slavery into freedom. But sitting out on this water, I can't help thinking that while the Israelites might have been excited, they must also have been deeply afraid, because they were leaving the most civilized place on earth for the most barren, based only on the word of a God they'd never actually seen. Perhaps no one since Abraham, 800 years earlier, could understand that degree of faith. Because on the other side of this body of water, on the other side of the Sea of Reeds, is the desert and the great unknown.
Bruce eyes the distant horizon.
The quest to reach the Promised Land had just begun.
The boat rows on through the muddy water, its single mast swinging over it with its sail wrapped tight. Now in a montage, a painting shows a man wrapping his hands in his robes as he accepts a book from a hand. In the desert, Bruce walks with a local who points to a gnarled tree. On a church's dome, a mosaic shows prophets.
Walking the Bible continues with Moses' epic 40-year journey through the barren wasteland of the Sinai Desert. It's a tale of survival, of a people's redemption, and above all, the story of how this vast desert proved to be a crucible of faith and the birthplace of a nation of God. It's the next chapter in the greatest story ever told.
Credits, based on the book Walking the Bible by Bruce Feiler. Executive producer Drew S. Levin. Producer Rebecca Dobbs. Director David Wallace. Written by Alex Gregory and Joan Meyerson. Host and co-producer Bruce Feiler. Edited by Ash Hazen. Realized for television Drew S. Levin. Copyright 2005 TMC Entertainment. This program has been described by the Media Access Group at WGBH with funding by the U.S. Department of Education. Described by Dutch Priest. Read by Pat Lentz. For more about description, call DVS at 1-800-333-1203 or visit our website at access.wgbh.org. More logos. KQED Presents and TMC Entertainment. Shows a bearded prophet. A classical column facade stands carved into a wall. Bruce Feiler walks a ridge past low circular shelters made of stone.
My journey through the Bible brought me to the Sinai, the desert that the book of Deuteronomy calls a great and terrible wilderness. Out here, you can't survive alone. How is it possible to imagine that this many millions of people could have lived here? I hope to trace the Israelites' 40-year odyssey out of slavery into freedom.
An SUV passes desert palms. Now, Bruce and two others check a map.
There are three possible routes the Israelites could have taken through the desert.
Bruce and Avner ride horses along a high-walled gorge.
I wanted to experience how, after centuries of life in civilized Egypt, they learned to survive in an inhospitable terrain.
When you taste it, do you feel like it's a gift from God?
Instead of a wasteland, I found a stark beauty that cleanses the soul and nourishes the spirit. I think I'm now a desert person, I just never realized it.
In the desert, Bruce and a guide ride camels. Now, Bruce enters a monastery's archway.
I visited St. Catherine's Monastery. I climbed one of the leading candidates for Mount Sinai, as Moses would have done when he received God's gift, the Ten Commandments. Sitting on this holy mountain, I can't help feeling the tug of that land.
Now, in the desert, Bruce walks with Avner.
That's the poetic twist at the end of the 5 books. The land is not the destination.
Images flash by in a montage. A white SUV zips along a paved desert road. A Bedouin boy runs past tents. On a tapestry, a hand from the sky gives tablets to a kneeling man. A stone hovel stands under the glaring sun. In a pen, goats romp playfully. A boy shepherds a flock of sheep. In a Bedouin tent, Avner and Bruce sit as guests. Now sunlight glimmers on a wide river.
My journey through the Bible started in Mesopotamia with Genesis.
A camel caravan crosses the desert.
Then I followed Joseph's path to Egypt. From the shallow waters of the Nile to the great temples of Egypt, I explored the story of Moses and his struggle toward freedom.
A fishing boat crosses a sea.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
A caravan traverses desert flats. Now a Torah opens. Words appear: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy.
The Bible is a living story. It is a tale of good and evil, love and hate, slavery and freedom, and above all, the worship of one God.
A low-hanging sun turns the sky orange. Now, amid toppled ruins, Bruce walks from rock to rock.
Join me now on a 10,000-mile adventure through the greatest story ever told.
A title, Walking the Bible with Bruce Feiler. Now, clouds drift over barren rock.
The Sinai Desert. The eternal wilderness where the Israelites find themselves after they've escaped Egypt.
Bruce walks alone.
How will Moses lead them? How will he get them to the promised land? I came here to follow the Israelites' 40-year sojourn through the desert.
Bruce lugs his backpack down a mountain slope. Now their white SUV drives a winding sandy path into foothills.
On my journey, I had the help of an Egyptian guide as well as a Bedouin desert expert to lead me through the rugged terrain.
In the SUV, Bruce faces us.
Up to now, the Israelites have been mostly in congested areas: Mesopotamia, Egypt, Canaan. Now suddenly they burst into the open. It's almost like they shuck the skin of these other cultures and begin to develop a culture of their own.
Packs sit lashed to the SUV's roof.
Though they believed in only one God, the Israelites had largely adapted to the Egyptian culture. Here, in the wilderness, they received the laws that will become the foundation of Judaism.
Words appear, Exodus chapter 19, verse 1.
They came to the wilderness of Sinai, and the Lord called to Moses from the mountain, saying, "Tell the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you to myself. If you will indeed obey my voice, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people."
Arid, furrowed mountains dwarf the lone SUV.
The vast emptiness is virtually unchanged since the time of the Bible. The Israelites would have to learn how to survive in the sands of the Sinai. Napoleon got bogged down here, as did the English army.
They get stuck, their tires spin in the sand.
Inevitably, so did we.
One traveler sets a handful of brambly scrub under the struggling tire tread.
A clever Bedouin technique would soon help set us free.
As the tread finds traction, the SUV pulls forward, then reverses onto firmer ground. They drive on. Nighttime. Near the parked SUV, the Bedouin starts a campfire with scant kindling. They prepare food.
That night, as we set up camp, I was amazed how little I knew about the desert. The Israelites, too, were used to a civilized lifestyle in Egypt. Suddenly, food, water, and shelter become primary concerns.
This is a traditional food. We call it koshari. So Do you like it?
I was surprised to learn that the sun is not the greatest threat here.
The guide fans the flames with his robe.
The biggest problem in the desert is not heat, it's cold. You can get out of the heat during the day, but you can't get out of the cold. That's why he was saying that everything is dark, the Bedouin tents, the clothes, even the bugs. They're designed to conserve heat and keep you warm at night.
I expected the hardships of the desert, but I was surprised at how isolated I felt. This extreme terrain seems to affect the Israelites too, who complain bitterly. Moses tells them, God sent you into the wilderness to learn what is in your hearts.
Alone, Bruce faces us.
We hear so much in the West about independence, as if that's the greatest value. There is no independence in the desert. There's only dependence. Out here, you can't survive alone. The Bible seems to understand that. It's when the Israelites come into the wilderness that they inch closer to the divine. Because what happens is you turn first to the group or the family around you, and when you reach the end of that, you turn to someone or maybe something higher.
Now the travelers sleep in a circle around the campfire. At sunrise, the golden light seeps gradually over the horizon. A montage fades between varying topographic features.
The Sinai is divided into 3 regions. Dunes in the north, sandy hills in the center, mountains in the south.
On a map, 3 routes lead east through the Sinai.
This varied geography has provided endless debate among scholars on the question of which route the Israelites took through the desert.
The longest route detours far to the south.
Where is there the most water? If you were going to settle in the Sinai for 6 months or a year, where would you go?
The closest place to water is at Sirabet El Kadim. There is water here, and it is the best place.
There are 3 possible routes the Israelites could have taken through the desert. The northern route seems to make the most sense because it's direct, but this would have been heavily fortified and the Israelites could easily have been caught. The central route would also seem to make sense, but there's no water there, so you can't stay there very long. The third option is to come south, and that makes sense because there are the mountains down here, and God would have led them there because he wanted to give them the 10 Commandments. So you have these 3 possible routes, and each of them has advantages but also disadvantages. But what's interesting is that for 1,500 years, people have come to the south thinking this is the way that the Israelites came, so that's the way we're traveling now.
The SUV cruises down a straight paved highway.
In Exodus 15, soon after crossing into the Sinai, the Israelites experienced their first test of faith.
Exodus
And they
15:23.
went 3 days into the wilderness and found no water. They could not drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. And the people complained against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" So he cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree.
A lone palm towers in the desert.
When he cast it into the waters were made sweet.
Now the SUV arrives at an oasis where many palms grow near stone wells.
The Bible says that after they drink, the Israelites camp by a spot that has 12 springs and 70 palms. Legend says that this is that place. It's called the Spring of Moses.
Bruce and his 2 companions walk among the trees and stop at one of the wells.
How many wells are in this area?
Oh, there are many wells here.
Why is this area called the Spring of Moses?
They have called it the Spring of Moses since the time the sons of Israel lived here in this area and drank from this water.
They walk on.
This would not be the last time Moses has to implore the Israelites to trust in God. Time after time, they rebel against God, who eventually labels them a stiff-necked people.
Now, in blurred footage, people shake their fists. Exodus 16:1.
The children of Israel complained, "Oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to the full.
At a table laid with milk and eggs, hands break bread.
For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you."
Now, Bruce and his team drive to a second oasis.
In the first days, the hungry Israelites make their way from oasis to oasis. such as this one called the Oasis of the Tamarisk Trees.
One tree stands 5 times as tall as Bruce, its branches tufted with dark greenery.
In the springtime, a plant lice crawls into the trunk of the tamarisk, eats the bark, and excretes a white, sweet, sticky substance that forms into globules and falls to the ground. The Bedouin call this substance manna.
Do you think there's some in there now?
A Bedouin man points.
Look at this branch. It grows on the branch.
Is that one?
It falls from up there to the ground.
Using a stick, he pops off a white clump.
Look at that.
Bruce picks it up.
It looks like the size of a hazelnut.
The guide gestures as he describes.
The grain resembles a grain of wheat. We heat it with fire like this,
He places rocks beside kindling.
and then we heat the manna. When we heat the manna, it melts, then we pour it into a bottle.
Bruce opens his Bible.
The Bible says the house of Israel named it manna. It was like coriander seed, white, and it tasted like wafers in honey.
It is like honey, honey from bees, exactly like the honey from bees. Very sweet.
The Bible says that manna is so special that it comes from heaven. When you taste it, do you feel like it's a gift from God?
It has been sent from heaven.
This is what it's like when it just comes off the tree. Do you have some that you've boiled down that I can taste?
I have it in my house, over there.
They walk together. Later, entering a house, the Bedouin takes a bottle from a shelf.
There we go.
He hands Bruce the bottle.
May I taste it?
Taste it.
Bruce pours a drop on his forefinger and licks it off. He smiles.
100%.
It's like honey.
Now Bruce walks among the tamarisks.
I was struck by how the desert landscape influences the Bible. The food that God provides is rooted in these desert sands.
Sheer cliffs stretch before a camel caravan.
For the Israelites, fearful, stubborn, resolute, the desert would become their crucible of faith. The farther I got into the Sinai, the more I realized the paradox of the desert.
Bruce walks a dusty footpath.
It's a struggle to survive in this barren landscape. But as the non-essentials of life are stripped away, it allows one to focus inward and ultimately outward toward God.
Mountains sprawl to a far horizon.
Since biblical times, the desert has been a place to find spiritual fulfillment. 1,500 years ago, hundreds of miles from anywhere, in the middle of nowhere, a monastery was built that is still in use today.
A stone compound.
This is St. Catherine's Monastery, built by Greek Orthodox monks.
The heavy walls enclose rooftops and trees.
They believed the mountain behind it was where Moses received the 10 Commandments.
Bruce peers up at the monastery's masonry.
Within its walls is the oldest operating church in the world. Services are held 5 times a day in Byzantine Greek.
Bruce passes through an arched gateway.
I hoped they would accept a visiting pilgrim for the night.
Bruce climbs stone steps to a passageway in an inner wall. Going through it, he enters a stone-paved courtyard. A bearded monk in a black cassock approaches. They shake hands.
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Garden.
Nice to meet you.
Mr. Garden, speak Greek now?
May I speak English?
Yes, sure. I speak English. What do you need?
Is it possible to spend the night here?
Yes, of course. Where you come from?
I come from the United States.
What's your name?
Bruce. And what's your name?
John.
John. Nice to meet you, Father John. Now, what time are services in the morning?
4 o'clock in the morning.
4 o'clock. Every day?
Every day.
Father John leads Bruce up a flight of stairs.
So how many years have you lived here?
About 10 years.
10 years.
They cross a railed walkway to a long row of doors.
How many monks are living here these days?
15, 20. Here's your room.
Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow
Have a
morning.
nice day.
Thank you very
Welcome
much.
to Stella Caterina.
Thank you.
Bruce's room contains a radiator, an electric lamp, and a chair, table, and cot.
The accommodations here were simple, but the view was epic.
He looks out at dramatic mountains.
Some believe this plain is where the Israelites camped while Moses went up the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments.
Bruce shuts the window. Now he walks down a narrow stone stairway.
Walking through the monastery feels like stepping back in time.
He eyes a cluster of buildings.
The place is virtually unchanged since the Middle Ages.
A monk walks with a cane.
St. Catherine's, named after a martyred Egyptian saint, contains a church, a mosque, and numerous biblical touchstones, including the well where Moses is said to have met his future wife, Zipporah.
In a workroom, a monk swings a censer.
For the 24 monks who live here today, life contains many links to the past. But they also reach out to those in the present. As part of their mission, they provide weekly supplies to local Bedouin.
Bruce glances into a room where a monk standing at some scales removes a weighty packet from a larger sack. In a bakery, a Bedouin tears off some dough in a huge vat. At a long table, dozens of monks and locals knead and roll the dough into loaves. Bruce helps them.
At the bakery, everyone pitches in to make fresh bread from an age-old recipe.
2 monks carry a trough containing dozens of unbaked loaves. A baker puts the dough balls into an oven. Later, Father John leaves the bakery. Now, Bruce rounds